And now, here is Coretta McDonald, Member of Parliament and host of Advancing the Cause.
Well, good night to you. Welcome to another episode of Advancing the Cause. We're here again with you another week to share some important information with you. And so let me start off by saying a pleasant good night to those who are watching us from all over. Yes, we have fans who are watching us from the UK. We have fans who are watching us from the Caribbean. We have fans who are watching us from the US. We have fans who are watching us from right around the Caribbean and right here in Guyana. So thanks for being tuned in to another episode of Advancing the Cause. And you know what? On this program, we talk about topical issues. Of course, we say them as they are. We speak the truth on this program, as a matter of fact. And because we recognize our viewers need to know what is happening and they need to hear the truth. And the only way we can give them the truth is when you have persons who have a level of integrity that is beyond comparable. But let me share with you some quick highlights. Again, today, we've seen it over the last week. Protest, protest, protest. We saw the farmers, the rice farmers in Region 6, and in Region 2. Today, the farmers in Region 2, again, the rice farmers were out in their numbers calling on this installed regime to come to their rescue. You know, all the promises that our folks had, all the promises that they promised people, and now they can't fulfill those promises. And so our rice farmers are left to face the blunt of this financial hurdle that they have to cross. But let me say to you, farmers, and not only the farmers, but the taxi drivers are protesting too. Everything is skyrocketing, but no one is reaching out to the small man to give them any help. But let me say to you, we here on the side of the coalition, we have your backs. We are here in full support of you. We understand your causes, and we recognize that these causes are legitimate causes, and no one else is looking into your interests, but we've got your back, and we're here to support you. Feel free to call on any member of the coalition, and we are going to offer that kind of assistance to you. So we're highlighting those things here, but when you're ready to call on us, we are going to be ready to present ourselves. And I must say, coming off of that, just about 2 years into office, and the PPPC cannot reopen not even one of the sugar estates that were closed. All the big fancy campaign promise, and yet not one sugar estate they can't reopen. I know we're going to hear all the excuses about why you couldn't reopen the sugar estates. But we know they're going to come. We know those excuses will come. But people, our people are intelligent people. And they're understanding every day that what you said to them a few months ago, they were total lies. You weren't sincere about what you were saying to them. And then as we go on, we saw just yesterday, a woman shooting herself at the Brigdam police station, shot herself to death. And this is saying to us that mental illness is on the increase. What is happening with this installed regime? Nobody from the Ministry of Health, nobody from the Ministry of Social Protection is offering any help to our people. And so our people are giving vent to their own feelings. They're doing what they think is best, that would ease them from their sorrows. It's sad that a young woman like that would have taken her life because no one sought to reach out to her. And then we saw today staff from GCOM. A registration clerk was fired today. And the whole story is there because he was a PPP agent at the last elections. I mean, how can we expect people an elections process to be smooth and highly fair and transparent when you have all these little snakes ducking in and ducking out? Come on, we got to fix this thing right. And I'm happy that that would have been recognized. On the hand of losing another life, we saw a GDF rank that was killed at a wedding house. You know, he stepped in there to part a fight and he was killed. People, come on. And you know, I think this is a whole lot of frustration that is taking people over. And so you have nowhere else. You feel that there's no other help. And so you get into fights and brawls and all kinds of things. Come on, people, we need you. Guyana needs you. And so we've got to stop this thing. We've got to stop this kind of killing. But I must say, since the return of the PPP, this is what we're having. Killings here and killings there, and everywhere is a shooting, and everywhere is somebody stabbing somebody, and everywhere is some cocaine getting bust somewhere. Come on. This is the return of the PPP we're seeing here. And folks, let me tell you what. We've got to get rid of these people. If we want to return to the days of the good life that you enjoyed between the period April 2015 and August 2nd, if you want to continue enjoying that good life, then you've got to get rid of the PPP. Get rid of the PPP. And then we saw another picture a couple of days ago that is really, really heart-wrenching. When we saw those Venezuelan nationals there, searching through all those garbage, the garbage there, looking for food. Things are really, really bad. Things are really, really bad. And so those of us who can offer help in Region 1, in Mabaruma, we ask that you offer some help. But ensure that these people are not going to be bogus into the system, because we got some reports earlier today that folks are in Port Khartoum and they're elsewhere, and they're attempting to register loads and loads of Venezuelans who are settling here without any birth certificate. Some of them don't even know when they were born, but we're attaching birth dates to them. Let's keep our eyes out for these rascals who are going to be doing this. And then last but not least, in our highlights for this evening, we saw an announcement coming that the Guyana-Suriname ferry is going to cease its operation, and the operation was halted today, and it would be halted tomorrow for emergency repairs to that ferry. So folks, yes, I know the inconvenience, but bear with them. Bear with them. And I want to say, these are the times when we miss people like David, the Honorable David Patterson. These are the times when we miss him. David, we're missing you, boy. And then we're having constant power outages. David, come back. We want you. We want David Patterson. Bring David Patterson back. And so those were some of the highlights for today. Those who would have celebrated birthdays, happy birthday to you. And we know we are sending out our condolences to those who are mourning at this time. We share your pain. But with me this evening, I have two wonderful gentlemen who are going to be joining me. We have the Honorable, and I'm going to call him the Honorable Sharma Solomon. He served as Regional Chairman, Region 10. Good night to you, sir, and it's good to have you here on Advancing the Cause. And then I have sharing this stage with us too, Dr. Mark Devonish, the evergreen Dr. Mark Devonish. Mark, it's good to have you once again on this program. And you know what? Tonight we're talking about where are we after being a republic for 52 years. Where are we? Where is Guyana? What is happening to its people? Have we progressed for 52 years? Where are we this evening? Where are we today? And I just highlighted a whole lot of stuff there, and you could understand where are we. And so, Honorable Sharma Solomon, I'm going to give you the opportunity to offer your opening remarks, and then we'll take some opening remarks from Dr. Mark Devonish. We can't hear you. Comrade Solomon, we're not hearing
Sorry
you.
about that. Sorry about that. I had my mute button on. Thanks again for having me on your program, MP McDonald. Thanks for being the presence of Dr. Devonish. And to your audience, it's good to be on Advancing the Cause. The issues, and I'll get straight to them, that you outlined earlier, Coretta, are most troubling, but it speaks to just where we are as a nation. I want to focus on two principal areas that you mentioned earlier that places into context where we are as a nation. And that will be my opening, which goes to the state of hopelessness that we see prevailing in our society today, whether that's among our young people, whether that's among the working class, people who are emerging from a pandemic, and not fully, but who are still in the grips of a pandemic, high cost to live. And that sort of hopelessness where people don't see the system working for them, but in fact against them. And the second thing, with systems working against them, you spoke about the level of crime. Only last week we had the annual police conference, and the police was gloating about the amount of crime statistics, only to have this week the US Embassy putting out an advisory saying that there is high crime in the society and advising their residents, and in general advising Guyanese about the current state. So that in itself, based on us having this opportunity to be a very progressive society, having this opportunity to have this newfound wealth in our oil resources, it is an utter shame where we as a nation find ourselves. And I leave it there and give the good doctor an opportunity to comment.
Dr. Devonish.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for yet another opportunity to be here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this show, whatever we choose to call it, and to be in the company of such individual as Mr. Solomon. Just briefly, the young lady that went into Brigham Police Station should not have been discharged from hospital. She was in a psychiatric hospital before she actually went onto the ship and she was discharged. And one of the things we actually consider before discharging such patients, you want to assess their suicide risk. And one of the parameters in terms of assessing their suicide risk is social support. Do they have anyone to turn to? What we know as facts is that this lady was going through a divorce. So what we know as facts is that her entire world was collapsing in front of her. There was absolutely no social support as such. So she should not have been discharged. But the unfortunate reality that she was just going as another statistic, because the hospital itself wouldn't review what went wrong, wouldn't review it to have an understanding of how we can improve things and what we can do to ensure it is not repeated. It is really, really unfortunate for someone in their prime for that to actually happen. What we're seeing playing out in front of our very eyes is an incompetent government. Who said the economy is first, let's ignore COVID? What they failed to realize, Jack Dio, he called himself doctor, he isn't a doctor. What he failed to realize is that COVID is not only a health issue. COVID has psychiatric component, because as we speak, the amount of psychiatric illnesses, the incidents, are actually increasing around the world. It has a psychological component. As we speak, that's increasing. It has a socio-economic issue, because when you're going to have things being impeded, the flow of goods being impeded, and people work is being impacted, it's going to have an effect to the extent that people are going to be at home without a meal. As a result, some people are going to indulge in crime. Any forward-thinking government would have seen that COVID is not just sticking vaccines in patient hand, as what it go around boasting. It is much more than that. What plans you have for the aftercare after COVID? COVID isn't finished as yet, but they should have actually thought about that. So what we're seeing presently is just the consequence of an incompetent PPP. And all those parameters I've mentioned will continue to increase because they did not pre-plan for it. They were so focused on the economy. But the clinical clung in Jack, they failed to realize COVID impacts the economy also. And that's why you have all these economies around the world are being affected. So unless you address COVID, these issues can't can be addressed, which is very, very unfortunate. There was this case where this young guy, Guyanese from America, a 23-year-old guy, someone was breaking up his car doors outside. He just stepped outside. The person just stabbed him, and he's dead. He's dead. Lots of people have undiagnosed psychiatric problem and psychological problem as a result of COVID, walking the streets. And the government supposed to have been investing in that, investing in psychiatric hospital, invest in psychiatric doctors and psychiatric nurses, and be very, very cautious in terms of discharging such patients who are at risk. Unfortunately, they focus on the wrong things, and this is going to continue to happen.
Yes, Mark, and I'm happy that you're mentioning that. You're talking about the effects of COVID and what was supposed to be done. And I've been complaining about this, especially with regards to the teachers and our students and pupils who would have contracted COVID. And I've been asking, what backup plan do we have to deal with these teachers in terms of counseling and these kinds of things? None. Teachers contract COVID, they stay away for 14 days, some 17 days, some maybe 20 days, and they return to school, nothing else. But the trauma that they would have been through, when it's time for them to return to school, they start getting headaches, they start getting fever, fear stepping in, but nobody there to offer the kind of counseling that is so needed. The same thing with our students and our pupils. The same very thing with our public servants who would have contracted COVID, or public servants who are at home, citizens who are at home, and a mother dies from COVID, or a brother dies from COVID, or a husband died from COVID, and there is no help for you. I vividly remember our teachers in Maruka, where when we had the outbreak of COVID, maybe 4 months or so down the line, those were the first set of people, 28 teachers in Maruka contracted COVID. And you know what? They were just placed in a shelter and they left there, and they were told, okay, use these painkillers if you get headache, use these painkillers. And that was all. And when it was time for schools to be reopened, those teachers were fearful. Some of them did not even want to come out of their homes because of the trauma that they went through. One, when they were placed in those shelters, they were away from their families. And so there was no one there to offer them the comfort. But thank God for the GTU, its general secretary, and the coalition. We were able to be calling those teachers every day, sending them a message. How are you today? How are you feeling? Well, do you have any ginger? Put it in some water. Rub up with some Vicks. Do this, do that. We were just sharing these things with our members. And I can say to you, no help was offered to those teachers. And just like other persons, just like other citizens across this country. And again, Mark, I would agree with you. And I would agree with Solomon Sharma by saying that we have a government that is incompetent. We have a minister of health who is always thinking, and he's not aware of this, and he's not sure about that. Could you imagine that? Now, that says exactly where we are as a people after 52 years of being a republic. Solomon Sharma.
I like that we're focusing on the issue of COVID because we're still in a pandemic. Contrary to what the government is promoting in their policies. And I like how that covered the issues that the pandemic have affected. So as somebody that brings an IR perspective to it, in most countries, this pandemic is seen as a national security crisis. You know, it penetrates every level of society. And we saw in particular how it affected the schools and how it affected the healthcare systems, education, healthcare in Guyana. So I think in essence, last August, when the teachers, in particular the teachers, came out and resisted the general handling of the government's performance of the COVID-19 crisis. I think commendably so, because the entire country suffered. And I believe this is where Guyana will stand to see years to come, that it was okay for even the vice president to say some people must die, you know, in a very callous way. And in those years to come, Guyana will see that most of those people should not have died. because of the sort of handling in which the government performed. Especially, you see that even systems, the government is relaxing the COVID-19 protocol and
Yes.
have not said to this country how they intend to do an evaluation to see how impactful COVID was still on the education system. However, we see the Minister of Education saying, oh, schools will reopen. And to date, I can assure you, people are still in a staggered state as to how many students are returning to schools, how many students have been affected, even our teachers, their mental state, but they're asked to come back and impart knowledge to take care of 32, 33 children in a classroom. That is the sort of callous handling of COVID. So, in that broader context of seeing COVID as a national security crisis and the way the government handled that crisis in itself demonstrates that years to come, the effects of what COVID have brought about more than the lives caused, we will start to see as it impacts even those in our education system, those with long-term health care issues. And I want us to commend again the teachers who found it important that at any level, if not being treated fairly and given the sort of attention, they can exercise that right to challenge the government to do better. And that is an encouragement I think should echo to all across there. So for me, COVID-19 is still with us. It is still being poorly handled. Every day you see cases on the rise. People are dying. There is no review on what went wrong and how we can correct it, but we are bulldozing ahead in the same incompetent.
Well, Sharma, I'm going to stick with you because I want you to zero in for us about what has happened in Region 10 throughout this entire pandemic. What is the state of Region 10? Where is Region 10 after 52 years? Region 10.
I always celebrate the fact that having given the status of our republic and having the status of being labeled after our founder leader and the People's National Congress, Lyndon Forbes Barnum, who gave Guyana the Republican status. Linden, as a community that prides itself within that embodiment of self-determination of what Republican status represents. It represents that final cutting of the card from our colonial masters and the pursuit of self-determination. That spirit that Linden found itself inheriting, even in name from the founder leader, I think represented well last year. Like I said, Linden called for an entire shutdown of the community. We got that overwhelming. The leadership very well commended for that in the community. So Linden is still with that spirit to resist. But what I can say is that the PPP government, as we saw when I was chairman in 2012, would have made it then and continue to make it their intention to punish Linden at every level. So though there is the resistance, I can tell you Linden is still without the sort of resources to ensure that it is developed in the sort of manner like you see in comparison to Region 2 and Region 1 and other regions. So I give you this for example. Linden, in terms of budgetary allocation, remains one of the only major regions without an agriculture budget. So you have budget in the 4 areas of administration, works, education, and health. But how do you intend to see a community of 50,000 people be able to feed itself when in the 70s we hosted agriculture program like the Barbies River Project in Ibini and those projects that produce surplus that we exported. So you see this sort of deliberate means by which things are being taken away from Linden and Linden is not being developed. Added to that, as the resources come in to develop Linden as meager as they are, the sort of contracts and contractors who get those works are not Lindeners. And that in itself showed the sort of reducing the ability of Linden to earn, to develop, and to be able. But like I said, though the fighting spirit is there, the PPP government makes it its intention to punish Linden. But I can say to you, Coretta, 2011, we proved in Linden that coming together, we have defeated the PPP. 2015, we did the same. 2020, we did the same. And I can say to you, with this sort of treatment, the resilience and the people's willingness to fight that sort of injustice will prevail come the next election, and even as we proceed.
Well, Sharma, I want to thank you, and I want to thank our brothers and sisters in Linden for being such a resilient group of people who understand what it means to struggle, who understands what it means to create a revolution. And we hope that the citizens in the other region, they can catch that same fire that blazes out of Linden. I'm not sure if it's the bauxite smoke that we used to see going up there in those, coming out of those towers there, that is what would have caused you to be so resilient. But I'm hoping that we would catch some of that same smoke, and we see that kind of resilience being displayed across this country. We are seeing little pockets here and little pockets there, like I highlighted earlier, where we have the sugar, we saw the sugar workers coming out. We are now seeing the rice farmers. We saw the taxi drivers. Last year when we had the floods and these contractors were employed to use their machines and so on, we saw them coming out and blocking roads at Port Morant and Tain and so on because of non-payment. And I'm saying, if the people of Guyana would stand up and face these issues and unite on these issues, then we would have a far way to go. But you know what? The PPP, they are good at dividing this nation. They are good at telling their supporters, especially more so when it comes to a certain time and you see they turn up at Babu John there in Port Morant, they know what to say to their supporters and to get them on the heels of their nonsense when they spread the propaganda and give them all the big promises. But we've recognized that people now are smart. And lots of people are recognizing that the glass that they were seeing in front of them and where it appeared to be a picture that shows streets of gold and full life and all the things that are nice, it wasn't that. It was actually a picture that was pasted there. Persons are recognizing that. And I'm hoping, and let me throw this out to our viewers, that our viewers, you are going to be in tune with what is happening, and you're going to go register and get registered for our local government elections, which is blooming in the air as we speak. Whether the elections, when it's a gimmick that they're throwing out there, I want you to go and get registered or re-registered so that if they call local government elections tomorrow, you are ready. And I'm hoping that we are going to speak in loud voices through our votes that we are fed up and tired of the PPP. Where are we after 52 years? Where are we with the PPP in 2022? You know, all the talks about the sugar estates, and we will reopen. And I'm going to bring Dr. Devonish right in on this one with the sugar estates. Talk to us, Dr. Devonish.
Well, I mean, I could talk from now until the next 100 years about the sugar estate and what a disaster it has turned out to be for PPP. I remember one time, but in 2019, where Cesar Narang Singh and I were involved in what I thought was actually a debate, but it wasn't a debate because he started to call me a whole host of names, simply because I asked him some real basic questions about the sugar estate, not so much from an economic point of view, but more so from a medical point of view. I know if I turn up at work and I see a patient on the ground lying, and I see it's just skeleton, and the nurse said he collapsed, he had a cardiac arrest. And I said, but it's just skeleton, because it happened 40 years ago. I know I have no time with her and that patient. He's been dead for 40 years. I can't do anything about it. And the same kind of reason you could use for the sugar estate. It has been dead for so long that no amount of resuscitation, blood, saline, antibiotics, antivirals, put on the ventilator could save it. It's in a skeletal state. The other arguments I use why it should actually be reopened, I use Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest. And you find that the dinosaurs weren't able to compete. So when the big stuff attacked the earth, The dinosaur wasn't able to go and get water because they're so bulky and so big, the smaller animals were able to go and get. And as a result, the dinosaur become extinct. That may appear to be cruel, but nature wants to make sure that the strongest are out there. They don't want stuff that can't compete. And the same thing happens in economics. If you have a company, an institution, a business that is not standing on its own 2 feet, for you to try to keep that business sustained, what you're actually doing, you destroy the rest of the economy, because a business that is not surviving is like a cancer. It's like a cancer. And if you continue trying to sustain it, that cancer will spread to other businesses, other institutions, and pull them down. Before you realize it, the rest of the country will be pulled down. And that was just basic common sense. You don't have to know a great deal of economics. Also, the fact that if the sugar industry was being closed down for 4 or 5 years, I know for a fact, during my days of growing up, we had to farm. Right next to our primary school, we had a little farm. And during the summer holiday, by the time we come back, it's a set of grass. The grass so high we could train like the Al-Qaedas. And we will take days to weed that grass down. And then we will take days to fork it up. And then you have to put seed, and it will be a long process. If that sugar industry was shut down, those sugar industry was shut down for 5 years. That is a massive sugar industry talking about. It will take first you have to do is prepare the soil, cut it down. But even before you prepare the soil, there's a likelihood that those machinery that weren't being used for over 5 years will seize up. And you have to get new ones. So that will incur a cost, and that will take time. The other issue is that you have to go and prepare the soil. When you go and prepare the soil, and you fork the soil up and do you have to, and then you plant your business, it's going to take at least a good while before it actually grows. During that time, the sugar workers and everybody are being paid. So by the time the sugar starts being produced, you are at a serious deficit. But then if you have more than 2 brain cells in your head, which we clearly have, but they don't have, you would know for a fact the only way the sugar industry will actually survive is if it can overcome that deficit. And the only way it can overcome that deficit is if it's making profits. That sugar industry hasn't made profits since I was doing mass games. That sugar industry has been dead. So all this kind of fancy argument that they could resuscitate the sugar industry, they could reopen factories. They can't reopen factories. It's not feasible. Common sense will tell you it's not feasible. But then again, that's how people operate. But I can just show how people don't think. Recently, an American university come down to Guyana, and so we want our doctors to actually come down here and see a few of your patients. Frank Anthony, excited, shaking hands, signing contract, and big smile in the face. He felt to himself the Americans are endorsing PPP healthcare. What the clinical clown failed to realize, they're not endorsing PPP healthcare. What they actually saying to you is that over what we have, as soon as someone gets sick, we take care of them quick. So these young doctors can't see no pathology. Let me send them where the people are not being taken care of, so they can see different pathology. That's the reason why they're coming. And that is a reflection of PPP. They simply don't have common sense. They just use everything for propaganda, failing to realize the danger in it. Priya opened her mouth and she said 70 girls get raped, so we need to reopen school. But it never occurred to her, why the hell it took so long to open school? Why the hell you wait until 70 girls were raped and got pregnant before you open school? But you see, they don't think. So I don't think it's just in the sugar industry we'll see this. We'll see this in all aspects of PPP. They're completely clueless. One clown went at the fire, sniffed a bit, and he said he was able to identify the cause. Correct, you need to be careful. I see you were talking about fire justice. The moment you say fire, they activate the bill to burn and they put it on you. Gotta be careful. Gotta be careful.
And you know, as we talk about that, I am seeing some comments there, and I'm seeing persons talking about shutting down of the nursing school, persons talking about them not having any plan. And yes, this is the very thing we're saying, and that they are so unfair, the manner with which they treat one set of people and the manner with which another group of people is being treated. And then we hear this big talk about one Guyana. I don't know, like I tell folks, yes, indeed, we have one Guyana, but we have one Guyana where you have the PPP and the elites there in that one Guyana, but the masses are under the Guyana which talks about one people, one nation, one destiny who are on the poverty line. That's where we have that's the Guyanas we're talking about. The one Guyana for the elites and the other Guyana, which talks about the people who are suffering, the masses of our people who are suffering. And here is it. There's a comment there that I'm not getting really clear to read it. But the thing is, we have got to be able to say to our people, yes, we're seeing here Lily saying to us, COVID is alive and still spreading. Hong Kong has shut down. UK, 53% infected. Watch out, Guyanese. Be smart. Don't listen to Anthony and the rest of them. And this is a comment we're getting here from one of our viewers. And this is a fact where we're saying we saw the announcement just the other day where the installed president is saying that Guyana is going to be reopened next week. And so everything would be reopened and all the COVID restrictions are going to be relaxed. Why did you take so long to release and relax these COVID restrictions? Mark, I'm going to bring you in just now. You forced Sputnik on our people, and now you're deciding what you're going to do with Sputnik when you fully well knew, and that's Frank Anthony, when he fully well knew that Sputnik was not good for Guyana. He knew that from the inception. But you were forcing people to take the vaccines, take Sputnik, take this vaccine, take that vaccine, when he was aware that these vaccines were not approved by the WHO. And I'm happy again when you mentioned that, Sharma, that our teachers stood out there and many of them said, we will not take that vaccine unless we are given all the information that all the questions that we're asking. Give us the answers and we will take the vaccines. If you can't give us the answers, we're taking no vaccine. And many other persons took that very stance to say, I will not be vaccinated because I don't trust these people. If you tell me that you're giving me Sputnik, it could very well be water mixed with something. I am not going to take that vaccine. And this is how, the level that citizens in this country went, because people are fearful. They can't trust this installed regime. And so, Mark, you're going to talk to us on the issue of the Sputnik.
Yeah. Before I actually go to the Sputnik, I just would like to address the issue that the person just commented on. First and foremost, I don't trust the Chinese. And it's not because I'm racist. I simply don't trust them. I don't trust them the moment, as a little boy, I see they're bringing out a sneakers named Mikey, M-I-K-E, with a swoosh turned upside down. I said, no, these are the kind of people we can't trust. They brought out Sinopharm, this vaccine, Sinopharm. Guyana bought it. And they start vaccinating people. What's happening in China now? It is happening in Hong Kong. China is shut down because the Sinopharm is not active against the Omicron virus. And China is shutting down president. I forgot to actually bring that up. And to me, again, evidence incompetent. When I say evidence incompetent, because before you go, I know for a fact, on Saturdays as a kid, I had to go and shop. I don't know for a fact there's a series of steps I have to go through when I go and purchase goods. If I buy the okra and I break the end to make sure it's proper okra, I get licks when I go, because I know if I go buy the pumpkin and I don't cut the triangle part and pull it out and check and make sure it's proper pumpkin, I get licks. I get so much licks that I got tired that I just mastered the art. So if you are going to get a vaccine, buy a vaccine, you would want to make sure that you have the evidence, the research underpinning it, so as to guide you to determine whether or not this is the best vaccine to have. Not PPP. Frank Anthony is completely blamed. He cannot say because you get married now you get distracted. You were distracted long before that. Long before that. Let's talk about Sputnik V. Jack Dio knew Sputnik V is useless. Frank Anthony knew Sputnik V is useless. But what did they do? They forced it on the people, and those who didn't want to take it, they locked them out of the buildings. They put big padlocks on the buildings. They locked the nurses out of the hospital, and some of the nurses are simply say, you see me? I don't need you. I go to Canada. I go to England. I go to America.
Yes.
And then the same Frank Anthony comes and said, oh, the nurses are all going away. I don't know why. Okay, Frank, I don't need to break this down to you, because if I need to break this down to you, simply mean you don't have a brain, and I don't communicate with people without brains. So that's the issue. We don't know anything about Sputnik V, because everything about Sputnik V was fabricated. The Russians, I don't trust them. The Russians, I simply don't trust them. I simply don't trust them. When I was a little boy and I see Rocky 1 and Sylvester
Stallone.
Stallone fighting the Russian man, and the man acting in an English movie but he's not speaking English, I ain't trust you since then. So I've always been paranoid about certain groups of people, and sometimes people may say you're always paranoid, but sometimes paranoia save you. If Frank had a little bit of paranoia and a little bit of brain cells and a little bit of common sense, he would not have bought. Not be saying, hey, what Frank is saying now. He's gonna send back the Sputnik. We don't want it anymore because the people don't want it. Lie, Frank. Not the people don't want it. Your people don't want it because they can't fly with it. The other issue is the people are only accepting Pfizer and J&J, but people are telling you that since time immemorial, WHO vaccines. Only if you had brought the WHO vaccines since last year, I feel the whole of Ghana would be vaccinated. People would be so confident we'll start vaccinating the dogs and the cats. But Frank don't understand that concept. You don't understand the concept that to get people on board with anything that you do, the people have to have your trust. And the first thing when he went to Parliament, he said, Sherrod Duncan was COVID positive. Christopher Jones was COVID. People said, hell no, I'm not going to get no test. And then next you see Frank and I are not best of friends, and he announced it in Parliament. I ain't taking no vaccine either. He destroyed the confidence.
Unprofessional.
Right. So it's a disaster. It's incompetence. It is foolery. You can find all the negative words to describe it. But I want Guyanese to have very, very long memories. We need to have long memories. When we go into that ballot box, we must be seeing COVID. When we go into that ballot box, we must be seeing discrimination. And something just crossed my thought about day one Guyana. Let me tell you what day one Guyana. They already have one Guyana established. But their real one Guyana is those who are being discriminated, victimized, killed, and do also. If they are accepting of those cruelties, then you will be a part of our one Guyana. But if you're not a part of their one Guyana, because clearly, look, Republic, they didn't invite the opposition, and they're talking about one Guyana. I mean, it's our finale. We know he's not the smartest, so I suspect he can't come. So he probably didn't realize. Anyhow, enough of him. Anybody that says, if you call me a fool, mean I'm a fool, you have to be a fool.
Mark, I like the way you put this over. And so I want to bring Sharma in right on this one, where we spoke, when you highlighted the fact that the opposition was not invited to the Republic the Republic anniversary celebration when we were going to recognize that 52nd birthday of Guyana being a republic, and we were not invited to the flag raising. And in other areas where you had flag raising in the other regions, there was this special instructions that were given across what should be done, what should not be done. And before you come in, Sharma, I must say that even in our schools, head teachers were told they can't have green. They shouldn't have green. I don't know what kind of one Guyana we're talking about, what kind of Guyana you're talking about, because any of the three Guyanas that we're talking about, they got green. Suriname got green, French Guyana got green, and the British Guyana, which is now the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, we got green. And so even in the school system, the flag of the national flag of Guyana, the golden arrowhead, which we hoist on several occasions, it got plenty green in it. And we are now telling our teachers that if we're going to have functions, we should not have green. Is green a cursed color? Sharma, your take on that.
Again, Coretta, it shows the value that the PPP is with for the structures of on which Guyana was built, principles. You know, we go back to that issue of self-determination and what a republic means. And one could say it's an envy of that republic under our late leader, Forbes Burnham. So you can say that. But in the realistic sense of seeing the PPP's behavior with reference to Republican status and the behavior towards their patriotic embrace of things such as the Republican status. To begin with, the PPP don't even see this as the cooperative Republic of Guyana. You know, in many ways, they are trying to take those things away from what makes Guyana and what makes Guyanese Guyanese. So you'd see them saying Guyana, not the cooperative Republic of Guyana, the Republic of Guyana. Those are the things are to diminish the gains that we've gotten. But more than the gains, what those things do is that it take away from what ideologically makes you Guyanese. So you are pushing for one Guyana when we have one people, one nation, one destiny as our motto. And you said it just now. It is a few elites who are pushing for them to own what becomes their one Guyana. But I take it a step further. You know, Creole sense of speaking, we don't say WNT, want. So they're saying one, WAN. They want one Guyana. They want Guyana. They want, so take out the want and just leave, they want Guyana. That's what they want, Guyana. And we must be very mindful when we say that, because check the actions of the PPP. Even as we look at issues such as COVID and the handling of COVID, it shows that it had just a few people. Instead of starting with the task force, the COVID task force was one set of people. It was made up of only the government. Even the mayor of Georgetown had to argue to become a principal on that task force when he manages such a large constituency. You see their behavior with regards to how they involve even at the Republican celebration. This is our national celebration. And the government excludes the opposition. We see with our Island Gas Expo, where even international heads of governments and agencies are saying to the government, you see USAID, you see Biden, President Biden in his Republican congratulatory note to Guyana and the president. They're all speaking on the same tune of that you have to get the people and stakeholders, more so the opposition, involved, but yet still this stubborn, determined position by the People's Progressive Party in the government prevails in light of the evidence that their concept of what one Guyana represents continue to drive us in a direction where we see rampant corruption, we see massive mismanagement. One could only look at the way the sugar industry is being handled. A national symbol is being reduced to pillaging to friends and families who will get this section of it and who will get that section of it. That's what the one Guyana represents. We want Guyana. You know, it is not for Guyanese to embrace. So there is no ideological underpinning on how that construct is put together in very sociological way, on how you ensure people embrace and feel the need to want to work towards and understand what role, purpose they fit within this dimension that you're trying to promote in this one Guyana. People don't feel that they fit in because you're excluding them, and then your policies are in themselves exclusionary in how they treat Guyanese. They're only for a certain thing. So I think you can put all of that together, from the PPP's mishandling of the entire system that is Guyana, whether those systems involve to deal with crisis of COVID. It is not how it should have been handled. People died, people are still suffering. When it becomes the issue of our sugar industry and our patrimony, today you have lied to sugar workers. You said to them that you're going to reopen the sugar industry. In fact, you're selling it off. Every single one from IFLA to Wales to Enmore being sold off. So you look at those sort of behaviors in our island gas sector in terms of our new patrimony and where Guyana is heading in terms of a new economy, rising, fastest rising in the world. And yet still, this government cannot bring itself to appreciate the level of mismanagement. So I think Guyanese are beginning to see. I would hope that the forces that are going to oppose that, just like we saw with the teachers, just the way we saw Linden came together in August, will appreciate that they have to come together to defeat this sort of behavior by the PPP, because the PPP is doing a damn good job by themselves, doing damage to how they're treating Guyanese and treating the economy. And people are seeing it in terms of when they come to their breakfast table to feed their families in the morning, high cost of living. There is no reprieve. There is no systems. And even for the systems provided by the People's Progressive Party to bring whatever relief they call it, it is marred in scandal. It is marred in corruption. Whether it was the agri farmers receiving for the cash grant for the flood relief, whether it was the COVID cash grant, whatever program. So people are beginning to see the true nature of what the People's Progressive Party represents. And I believe once there is a coming together of the forces, just like 2015, just like 2011, we will defeat the People's Progressive Party.
Sharma, I thank you so much for that. I'm hoping that our viewers are getting a clear picture of who really the PPP are and where are we after 52 years. Every time we seem to be making one step or two steps forward, whenever the PPP come around, we have 10 steps that are taken backward. And this is crazy. This is crazy. We cannot allow them to do this to us. Mark, we'll take you on at this time because I remember we had the issue of Frank Anthony again. And when the teachers when the teachers were having their protest actions, and the teachers said, look, we're not going to take any Sputnik, we're not going to take any Sinopharm, we're not going to take anything else, bring Pfizer and we'll take that. But Mark, your good friend, Dr. Ramsamy, at that time said, what the teachers want with Pfizer, what they know about Pfizer, and if they want Pfizer, let them go and look for it. Let them go and look for it and bring it and we can pay for it. And this is how callous these people are. But I'm saying that to say that the teachers were way ahead of Frank Anthony and Dr. Ramsamy, as well as Berry that they have there. The teachers were way ahead of them, and the teachers did their research, and they knew that if they were going to take any vaccine, they wanted the Pfizer vaccine. Then the other thing we saw coming out of Frank Anthony and, of course, your good friend Priya, where they seem to be on a battle competing with each other. So Priya says one thing, and then Frank says something else. And then the COVID task force says something else. And Frank doesn't know that the COVID task force is saying this, and he would have given permission for that, and he allowed for the reopening of schools, and Frank doesn't know all of these things. Mark, put this into perspective. Let us understand what is really happening with these folks.
Well, I mean, there are a variety of issues there. The first issue is a concept called patient autonomy. So what is patient autonomy? Patient autonomy is simple terms, my body, my choice. And why is it important to respect patient autonomy? Because patients who feel that they're part of the decision process are more likely to be engaged with whatever treatment they receive. That's the evidence. So when people were saying they want Pfizer and Ramsamy, who I honestly don't know why they don't find some retirement home to put that man, would say what they know about Pfizer. It's just the height of arrogance. Why is it the height of arrogance? Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers in terms of Pfizer. In the 90s, in terms of reducing infection, in the 90s, in terms of reducing avoiding hospitalization, and also deaths. So that's the evidence. But Ramsamy, on the other hand, feel that he's the pantheon of all wisdom, and he knows nothing. This is the man who said he approved Sputnik V. He read some magazine, and magazine said this and said that, and he decided to approve Sputnik V. But what the man failed to realize, I am assuming he's a man because phenotypically he looks like a man. What he failed to realize is that this approval process, something could take months, and you get documents directly from the pharmaceutical companies. You don't get no information from no journal. You can't trust them. I told you millions and millions of pages. And they will go through all the different phases of the clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So it is not as simple as that. And the most embarrassing thing, this man is going to actually say that in front of Dr. Etienne. Dr. Van Wesh, Charles was there also. And Dr. Frank Anthony was there. And immediately I disowned him. I said, no, he is one of those fools that were left behind. Because he cannot be talking such absolute nonsense. The other issue also is trust. If a doctor is not trusted, then it's very unlikely he or she can convince that patient to take the medication. How can you get the trust of the patient? You can get the trust of the patient by respecting them, respecting reviews, respecting their choices. I'm not trying to force anything on them or insert your views on them, but that's what people fail to do. They go and get Sinopharm, and Sinopharm now in China, shutting down because of Sinopharm. But what the idiots fail to realize, they could have predicted this because that was happening in the Middle East since last year, and they start boosting their people with Pfizer. The other issue is that they knew that Sputnik V wouldn't work, but the point is they were more obsessed with numbers. One time I saw in the newspaper, 120 people died from COVID, and yet this idiot, Dr. Ramsamy, said our vaccination program is working. How could it be working when people are dying? You are so foolish. You argue that 60% of the people who got vaccine. You are still foolish. That's not the point. The point of vaccination is to reduce deaths, reduce hospitalization, and reduce infection. If those parameters are not improving, the program is failing, and you need to review it. So this is just a manifestation of a people who don't even understand the basics. And sometimes you find that very, very successful CEOs would employ people who may not necessarily have their views. And so when they have their boardroom now, you have 20 people, you may have 5 who are totally outrageous, 5 who's in the center, 5 who's on the left. And what actually happens is that from those groups, the people who think differently, you get best results. So to have the task force, I would drop the T from that task. I thought it was TASS. But anyway, I spell it TASS. TASS, drop the T. They're no task force. They were just doing a set of nonsense. They don't know what they're about. So it is very unfortunate that we are in the position that we're in, but it's all down to people being incompetent, and all down to people foolery, and all down to the arrogance, always believing that they know what best. One final point. When COVID deaths were increasing last year, people were saying, well, it's increasing because you're under-tested. Dr. Carpin and Ramsamy and fellow named Mahadi were coming and saying, no. We tested enough. It's not we fault. It's APNO's fault. And that just summed them up. A good leader takes responsibility, but they haven't, and they don't. Coretta.
Yes, Mark, thank you so much. You see, the thing is, if we listen to what has been transpiring over the last couple of months, adding up to the 2 years that the PPP installed regime has been governing Guyana, all you find them doing is talking about what APNO did, what APNO didn't do, what APNO did. Oh, it is not their fault. Oh, it is not this. I remember Priya Manik Chand saying to us, to the GTU, use representatives, oh, I inherited this. I inherited that. When we were referring, when the GTU was referring to some conditions that were not met in the agreement. And so right there and then she had to be told, don't tell us about what you inherited. Fix it. Your government of the day, fix it. And if you're going to talk about inheritance, the coalition inherited a whole lot of trash from you. And the coalition didn't say, oh, I inherited this. The coalition sought to fix it. And so, Mark, you're going to share with our viewers some of what the coalition did during their tenure in office, which was short. But when we compare what was done by the coalition as against what was done by the PPP for 23 years.
Exactly. I mean, the coalition did quite a lot within a very, very short period. My Cody Hospital, what used to happen there is that patients had to come to Georgetown to have blood tests. And the reason why they had to come to Georgetown to have blood tests is because the labs only would be open up to 12 hours. But there's a concept again called patient-centered care, where you put the patient at the center of the care and you do things in the best interest of the patient. It's not the best interest of some grandma in her 80s to be crawling down to Georgetown to get blood tests. So what the APNFC did, they build labs. They build labs. As a result, the people did not have to go to Georgetown any longer to have blood tests. And the people are actually commenting on it, how happy that was actually done. Another thing that APNFC did, which we ought to give them credit for, in Port Kaituma, they did not have ambulance. Yes, 23 years of PPP, and they said, we build the best healthcare. You hear the talk. You hear the talk. You would honestly think they created man. But let me tell you, it was the APNFC recognized that the people did not have ambulance. And this is what a gentleman by the name of Evelyn Williams, resident of Port Kaituma, had to say. It's a blessing. And I'm feeling good that we got an ambulance, because if anyone gets sick, we can call the ambulance and they can come and collect us. And in that very, very simple statement, what a gentleman is saying he's addressing is a complex issue. He was saying, during PP time, when we didn't have this ambulance, we were dead worried that we could get sick and we don't have no means to get to the hospital. But then again, it took APNFC, after inheriting a crashing healthcare system from PPP, to actually address this. The other point I can also make is APNFC built a modern bridge in Maruka, cost 110 million. The previous bridge that they had was sinking. I was covered by water. And as far as I know, there's only one man who's capable of walking on water, and it isn't you. APNFC came and they actually addressed that. Built a new bridge. You see, people on the other hand, they do things for electioneering. They would go and build some random building, and the building would have no benefits for the people. But they can use that building to argue, vote for us again because they build this random building. But with APNFC looked at what the people needed, what the people critically needed. This is a proper bridge. It's a proper bridge. Just imagine you can't swim, you sink. The other thing that APNFC did, oh my God, they've done lots of work in Port Kaituma, 155 million. And what actually is some significant road works. You would have seen during the PP time that people would be driving vehicles, and the vehicles are being stuck in mud and stuck in clear road and all manner of stuff. People don't want to get stuck. People want to move on. And APNFC recognized, and I'm quite sure, absolutely certain, abundantly certain, under the leadership of Granger, Mr. Granger, they listened to the people. What do you want? And they provided it. I have a whole long list. I can go on until I realize we have X amount of time to work on. So I'll address the last one here. What they actually did, there's an airstrip called Bimiki Airstrip. Bimiki Airstrip was in a deplorable state. And APNFC developed it. We're talking about those airstrips people were developed to bring their drugs in. These are airstrips to get people in and out of the region. And then this young man had this fellow by the name of Larry Barkley, who I happen to know from QC, and suddenly he's pretend he don't know me. He had this to say: all the best, Larry. I heard you have been suspended, but all the best. Larry Barkley had this to say: we are flying a tri-lander plane with a capacity of 18 persons, and we can take off fully loaded, like the minibuses, fully loaded. From that airstrip, before they can't take off fully loaded. They gotta be quarter loaded, and you can't make any profit. This translates to shorter travel time and cheaper rates. But what he missed here, what Larry Barkley missed, the most important thing: you're saving the environment. Climate change is being affected by the stuff that we emitting from planes. So if you're traveling less, you're saving the environment. You're just saving the environment. So the point is, those are just some of the collection of stuff that the Apno AFC did. And as I said before, we have a whole dossier on the kind of stuff that they did. And the important thing, as I always say, and as we always say, listen to the people. The people aren't stupid. The people aren't stupid. And I hope PPP can actually look at this and learn something. Over to you, Coretta.
Thank you so much, Mark. And this is what we're going to be doing every week on this program. We're going to highlight what was done by the coalition. 1, 2, we're going to have our health bit, but because our time is almost out, we can't have that this week. But next week, I promise you that we are going to have our health bit on so that we can share some health talks with you, some health issues, some recommendations, and the whole host of it we're going to share with you next week. We'll take closing remarks from my brother Solomon Sharma, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what happened today with the coalition.
Again, thanks for having me on, Coretta. Thanks for being the company with Dr. Devonish and to be able to speak with your audience. And just to bring, before I close on this point, that we are at this moment in the history of Guyana, where we are, and you noted the Republican status that we've attained, and we are soon will be celebrating our 182nd independence anniversary. I think what is most important, well, not independence, but emancipation. I think what's important is that Guyanese and where the PPP have placed Guyana, which is on the rise as one of and is the fastest economically rising nation, should take cognizance of the struggles that we've endured, all those struggles from our 1763, our emancipation, our village movement, our independence and Republican struggles. All those struggles should not be for nothing. Now that we are in the cusp, we are on that verge of every single Guyanese being able to be lifted out of poverty, that we should still be living like this. So I think indeed your program is with the fitting name, Advancing the Cause. The cause should be that as Guyanese, we resist, like those struggles before against colonialism, like those struggles against any system that seek to place you and I, as Guyanese, in a situation where we're unable to live as Guyanese so that we can benefit from the patrimony to become that one people, one nation, one destiny, then we must challenge that. We must challenge it. And again, I want to commend the teachers the same way that they saw the mishandling of what we are still in as a pandemic and challenge it and still challenge it. It is still the teachers that are standing in resistance to the way the government, and I mean the visible resistance, to the way that the government is handling COVID. So Guyanese should see that as an example of where they can draw the sort of strength and encouragement to challenge the government mishandling on so many things in Guyana. So again, Coretta, I want to thank you for having me on, and I want to encourage you to continue to advance the cause.
Thank you so much, my brother Salman Sharma. And I want to say to our parents at President's College, whose children are attending President's College, and to the residents of Golden Grove, to resist the removal of the bust of LFS Burnham from President's College, because we're hearing talks that moves are afoot to remove the bust of LFS Burnham from President's College and to replace it with another one. So I'm going to ask you parents to be resilient and to resist that. If we want to talk about the President's College, and what you can do is maybe create busts of all the presidents if you wanted to reflect the President's College, but don't attempt to remove one now to put another one. It's not going to work. So parents, be on the alert. Residents, be on the alert, because we cannot want to destroy things or institutions that have been created because you want them to resemble you. And this is what the PPP are all about. This is what they do every time. They seek to destroy every structure that was created by the PNC, every structure that was created by the coalition. They are seeking to destroy that, and we will resist this. And so as we go on, I want to say to you, our viewers, that the coalition team today met with GCOM, and the coalition expressed the view that the country's electoral system or elections system requires substantial reforms, and that GCOM should not be engaged in any new elections without these reforms. The coalition further stated that those reforms must benefit from international best practices that are geared at producing credible results that would be accepted by the citizens of this country. So I just wanted to ensure that I put that in to let you know that the coalition is up and we're alert and we are watching every move of this installed regime. And so, my viewers, I want to thank you for watching here with us on Advancing the Cause. You've been here with us every week, and I want to thank you. But before I go, I want to say to us, I'm sorry that my brother Sharma would have left, but I want to say to us, for those who are teachers that are watching this program, and for those who are friends of teachers watching this program, I want to say to you that the Guyana Teachers Union is in elections mode. And we have several persons who are vying for positions. And one of those persons that is vying for position is yours truly, Coretta McDonald. And of course, I have a team of people who I am working with. We are a team, and we see the interest of our teachers. It's not about I and me, it's about the theme. And this team will work to ensure, once you elect us, that our teachers will receive the best of representations, that our teachers, if we tell them boots on the ground, we are going to be there with our boots on the ground in the forefront, not behind. And I'm happy that my brother Sharma is here again, because I'm talking here about the GTU's elections. And so my brother Sharma and my brother Mark, I want you to be on screen with me. The GTU is having its elections, and yours truly, Coretta McDonald, is vying for re-election as General Secretary. And the teachers know, our viewers out there know that they've been seeing Coretta McDonald out there. And I want to promote my team. I have here with us on the team, Miss Vanessa Kissoon from the mining town of Linden. You know that young woman, a very vibrant and courageous and outspoken young woman who would give the kind of representation that our teachers need. We have a first vice president in the person of Sister Lesmin Collins, head teacher, Diamond Secondary School, and it was under her stewardship that the GTU would have created history by having surplus in the millions, over $30 million in our account of savings. Teachers and the viewers who are friends of teachers, encourage the teachers to vote for this team. We also have Sister Jennifer Nicholson as our Deputy General Secretary, who we are promoting. She has been doing quite a fantastic job. And you know, next week I'm going to tell you a little more about what has been happening at GTU, but I just wanted to share this with you. We also have our brother Kamal Singh, who is running for second vice president, and I would ask that you support this team. And if you look at this team, as well as the other members who are unopposed, if you look at this team, you are going to see that this is the team that reflects one Guyana. Well, I shouldn't say one Guyana. This is the team that reflects Guyana. One people, one nation, one destiny. Vanessa Kissoon, Coretta McDonald, Lesmin Collins, Jennifer Nicholson, Kamal Singh. These are the teachers who will stand for teachers across this country. These are the teachers who will represent our children, who are the future leaders for tomorrow. And what we see here as our vision for teachers, we see a couple of things. We want to talk about teachers who would have been teaching for 25 years. And if you have to leave the system, you have to resign and leave the system, then you get no benefit. These are issues that we are going to be dealing with. We are looking at issues that says, if a teacher has been in the system for 8 to 10 years, then that teacher should be granted the concession of having a house lot at a reasonable cost. If teachers who would have served at the CPC, and we're talking about teachers who would have graduated here from CPC, and you're in the system for this time, we're saying that transportation now is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity, and that a teacher, after being in the system for 7 years, should be granted concession to buy a motor car. These are some of the issues that we're looking at, and we're going to forge forward for our teachers. We've looked at other issues of the classrooms, what we expect our classrooms to be like, and in these modern days, how we expect teachers to be provided with the necessary materials. We want to move to the level where we can have projectors in our classrooms so that our teachers are not going to be struck with illnesses and all kind of ailments from the chalk dust, because we know the chalk that is being bought, it's cheap chalk, and our teachers, many of them are affected. And so these are some of the policies that we are going to be looking at and implementing so that our teachers in this country can be the best. As a matter of fact, I shouldn't say be the best, because when you look at the manner with which our teachers perform under the conditions that they are working and the passes we get, and you know what is sad? It is sad that our teachers work with their students at CXC, work with their pupils at grade 6, and you know what? The ministry officials, they take the praises for it. Our teachers don't get the kind of recognition, but you see ministers jumping around the place talking about Guyana scored top positions. Guyana scored top positions, but who helped us to get there? Our teachers. And so this team is going to ensure that our teachers stand firm in this country where respect and recognition is concerned. So I want to leave you with this and to remind you that COVID is still alive and it's kicking. Be mindful. Wear your mask. Sanitize as often as possible. Stay away from the large crowds. Don't bother with the big shows, Beanie Man and Dexter Baps or Daps or whoever they are. Stay away from large crowds. My people, I'm saying to you, the PPPC, they don't care about you. If Barra Jagdeo could say to us that people will have to die, then you have to be very mindful of that statement. That's not a leader who cares about you. And so in leaving you this evening, I want to say thank you to my 2 brothers who were here with me, and to say to you, advancing the cause is always welcome to have you here to share with our viewers. To our viewers, it's a pleasure to always have you. We love you. One people, one nation with one destiny. And we are going to forge forward to ensure that Guyana becomes once again the shining star in the Caribbean and the further afield. Take care. Bye-bye. May God bless you all.
Bye.
Thank you for watching our program. See you right back here, same place, same time. And remember, hold the line of battle, comrades. Our victory is sure.